Listen, can you hear? The sounds of war. Rifles, mortars, missiles, bombs. Infantry, Marines, sailors, airmen. Can you hear? There was a time when evil tried to devour the free world. There was a time when every shoulder had to be put to the grindstone. Every brave young man and woman had to be courageous. The free world depended on it. Those battles raged in the foxholes of Europe in World War I, and we and our allies won. So we thought. World War II brought a more sinister evil. Enemies on land and sea, thirsty to devour democracy and freedom. On land, in the skies, below the waters, all were put to the test. The muscles, wits, strength, hearts, and souls of all of our armed forces. Young men so young, others old enough to be their fathers, determined to fight to the end. Their hearts pounded, their nerves stretched tight, their arms and legs strained. In the searing heat, bone-chilling cold, drenching rain, freezing snow, and they fought on and on, trying not to show fear, and wounds, and death, and trauma, deep trauma. Yet they laughed, they joked, they prayed. They stood as living testimony to the American spirit. One for all for one. And young women too. Welders, test pilots, nurses, communicators. Used their skills and bravery. Back home, millions sacrificed food, gasoline, meat, and more. Not 1 second, 1 minute, or 1 hour could be wasted or lost, or else the world would lose too. But the Axis was conquered amid the most significant destruction the world had ever known. 65 million men, women, and children, soldiers, sailors, and civilians died in World War II. 65 million. Once again, freedom was saved, yet our men and women continued to battle. In the snow of Korea, the jungles of Vietnam, in the valleys and mountains and deserts of Iraq and Afghanistan, never knowing when or if they would come home. Some never returned. The experience, for some, is still burned in their hearts and souls. Although they served in different wars, at different times, and in different lands, they have much in common. Each one stood and raised the right hand and took a solemn oath. This is what they said. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States, and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations in the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. So help me God. But who are these young men and women willing to go anywhere, anytime, and do anything our nation asks? It is an intense responsibility and a heavy burden. They are our neighbors, friends, classmates, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. Many we may never meet. Some we wished we could. Let me introduce you to some from the greatest generation.
In that first assignment that I had when I got to the Philippines, this rifle company, it was about 60 or 70 miles south of Manila, a little town of Lipa. I went out with one of my fellow officers to a cliff outside that little town, a cliff about 50 or 60 feet high, and I looked down, and there were skeletons of literally hundreds of human beings at the bottom of that cliff, but the Japanese had forced them over these Filipinos over the cliff in a massive murder.
So my first experience was that they put us on these landing crafts and told us that it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they said, you're going to step off in about 3 or 4 feet of water. We'll take you into about 3 or 4 feet of water. And so we went in with 80 pound of pack on our backs and our rifle. And when they dropped it board for us to get off, stepped off in about 6 or 7 feet of water. Went under like a rocket to the bottom. You had to fight your way out or drown. Sometimes it's who's the best shot and who's the quickest shot, and sometimes it's you go on instinct. You learn, and raised as a country boy, I felt like I had good instinct about hunting and how to move, and certain times you had to move cautiously. And you have to shoot a man that's during those days you think nothing about it. You don't have time to think. You operate on instinct and what you're trained to do. And it didn't bother me until I came home.
Now, of course, there's a lot I have forgot. There's some I'm gonna never forget, you know. And I guess there's some I wish I could forget. And one thing is, like I said, I left some friends over there, and I know they ain't gonna never come home. That's the hating part about it. Once you learn people, you know, and then something happened to them like that, through no fault of their own, but I guess that's the way it is. Let Job.
I found a field that I could land in and headed toward it, and I set up the flaps for as much as I could, and got ready to run it into the field, and the flak batter that was shooting at me was on that field. So I was headed to the field, and they opened up fire on me. And I had a clear shot, and I went right in over them and pulled back on the wheel and waited for it to settle in. And it went just as smooth as could be. It just dropped in, and the white left wheel folded up instead of, I thought it'd be whipping me around, but it folded up in the air, and the tail hit first and dragged a little bit, and then it flopped down, and then it put with the tail sticking up, and the wheel came back and hit me right here. It's about gone. I have a scar. I used to have a scar right up there. But I got out of the plane and started to run down the hill away from the battery. They were firing at me. The guns were firing at me, but I figured I could make it to the trees until they opened up the machine gun. We opened the machine gun on me, and dirt started flying up all around on me. I stopped and held up my hands, and that was it. Well, we talked about home and family and eating, something to eat. We talked about food and meals that you have, you know, and where you'd get those good hamburgers, the food was the primary topic of all conversation. When we saw them, from them, those that were able to get around and everything, they were just overwhelmed, you know, for the fact that they couldn't believe that they'd been liberated. Of course, most of them were just almost close to being dead. They were just starved to death.
The Battle of the Bulge, we didn't get the real severe ones, but we got in with frozen feet and legs and hands and all. And I had one patient that his right hand was gone, and he worried about how he was going to, you know, make it when he got home. And I talked to him and tried to, you know, help him as much as I could. And when I got home, why, he wrote a letter to me to show that he could write with his left hand. And I remember him. Well, it was a job to do, and I felt like I was happy. And then I had God to help me, because I didn't depend on him as much I should have, or it would help me. But you know, it's just a day's work. Does that explain it?
Well, I was in as I said, it was a unit repaired. We repaired clothes, shoes. We guarded the prisoners. You know, they had a big outfit, and our company guarded them. And I can remember they said they were going to break out that one night, and they had to go through a big sewage, you know, a toilet sewage. And I was on one pole, and I said, if they had guts enough to crawl through that sewage, I didn't have guts enough to shoot it.
I didn't get excited about nothing, I know. Or get scared either. Didn't have sense enough to get scared. I'm glad I got to serve. I don't regret it. I don't regret a cotton picking thing I've done during World War II.
This is my Episcopal prayer book the church gave me. The Germans let me keep it, and I have made notes through it. It was my diary. The last entry, 14 April 45, liberated by the British. moved to Hildesheim to await a plane out. With God's care, I made it.
For those who didn't make it, there is a tribute in our nation's capital at Arlington National Cemetery. It's called simply The Changing of the Guard.
Forward! Up!
For many years, I have been privileged to interview many combat veterans and their loved ones. They have inspired me to write poetry to help others understand what they went through. Here are just a few. Little soldier, his BDUs draped over his shoes, his cap sunk above his brows, yet he stood straight and strong that morning when I shipped out for another tour. The night before, I read him The Giving Tree, and we shared ice cream topped with chocolate goo. On the tarmac, he picked up my hand, my right hand, and kissed it as his dimpled smile offered me courage when I should have been giving him mine. The bus pulled up to take us to the plane, and I knelt to my little soldier and I pulled him tight and felt his little heart beat against mine, straining not to cry. He reached into his pocket, and there in his hand was the plastic sheriff's badge I gave him so long ago. "This'll protect you, Daddy. Show the bad guys this." And there it happened. My son saw me cry. My son loves me so, he gave his best badge. I turned and headed for the bus, my heart torn whether to look back or not. So I did. And my little soldier gave me a sweet salute and a cute smile. So I saluted back and smiled to my little soldier. My heart raced with utmost fear. I might not see this little guy, my little soldier, again. My MRE, oh, how I love my MRE. It's foil packed so easy to open. Spaghetti and meatballs, steak and sauce, eggs and ham, made who knows how many years ago. Just for me, for this day, this meal, just for me. Gum, a towelette, so refreshing. Salt and pepper too, even dessert, a cookie, a brownie, not like Mom's, but well preserved, no telling how many years. Just for me, my MRE. Just for me, my MRE. My girl. My girl, I remember the time we went fishing, we went shopping, we went kite flying, we went searching for seashells. My girl, I remember the time you curled my hair, you read to me, you snuggled in my arms, you painted my nails. My girl, I remember the time we splashed in the pool, we played Scrabble, we talked and talked, so deep into the night. Each day with you was like a precious gem, a glistening stone with unequaled radiance. But as I sit here on this bed, in this hospital in Iraq, memory intact, legs gone, I pray when, my girl, we meet again, you see the dead you remember, not the dead you see. Fruit Loops. SpongeBob SquarePants came on. I sat mesmerized like I did so many times. An angel nestled into my lap with her bowl of Fruit Loops. Want some? She asked. Oh, no thanks. I wanted to squeeze her so tight we'd never be separated. I wanted to tell her all about war, all about fear, all about why I cry sometimes. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on the couch with SpongeBob and Angel and Giggles and Fruit Loops. There is one overriding desire in all of those combat soldiers I've interviewed. This is it. Me again. I cannot recall the days, the weeks, the months that have drifted and sped through my life these times since I've been home. I only know I have survived. Sometimes as thin as thread, sometimes as hard as rocks, sometimes as sweet as chocolates. I have survived. Only God knows how. But I am here, moving forward, grasping at faith, clinging to love. I move to a place where I need to go, to a place beyond bullets, to a place beyond gray skies, to a place beyond sadness, to a place of great vistas, to a place of discovery, to a place of hope, to a place where I am me again.
if we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, "My Pledge," he had written these words: "America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.